In the heart of 1920s San Francisco, tucked just beyond the shadows of cable cars and brick facades, Chinatown wasn't merely a neighborhood. It was a world of its own. Under arched pagoda roofs and glowing lanterns, entire stories simmered in. Soups glistened on roast meats and cracked between bites of sesame seeds. It wasn't just about eating, it was about identity, celebration, and survival. Behind every steam-filled alleyway and banquet table was a culture holding strong, one dish at a time. From meals whispered about in family circles to platters that cost more than a week's rent, we're stepping back into this golden era to rediscover the flavors that defined the time. Here are 25 iconic dishes that made 1920s Chinatown a culinary legend, starting with the one that turned heads the moment it hit the table. Roast Peking duck with plum sauce. Walk into a bustling banquet in 1920s Chinatown and glance toward the kitchen window. There hangs a roast duck so perfectly lacquered, it glows like polished mahogany. This wasn't your average dinner. Roast Peking duck was a spectacle reserved for life's grandest moments. Weddings, New Year banquets, or merchants with deep pockets looking to impress. Preparing it wasn't just cooking, it was craft. The duck was first air-dried, tightened by time and air, then roasted until its skin shimmered like glass. The fat rendered slowly, the meat held onto every drop of juice. But the secret? The plum sauce, sweet, tangy, and often a family's most protected recipe. Dried plums, ginger, vinegar, and a touch of mystique. Wrapped in pancakes with slivers of green onion, each bite was a celebration of contrast. Crispness, richness, brightness. At $2.50 a plate, this wasn't something you grabbed on a whim. At a time when rent was $15 a month, ordering Peking duck declared something bigger. I've made it. And not far down the table, something even more elusive was being poured into fine porcelain bowls. Shark fin soup. When a waiter in pressed whites lifted the lid from a porcelain bowl, and an aura of savory steam escaped into the air, you knew something rare had arrived: shark fin soup. In the 1920s, this dish was more than status. It was reverence on a spoon. The fins themselves added texture, not flavor. Their value came from what surrounded them. Hours-long broths bubbled with chicken, scallops, ham, even pork bones to create a golden, shimmering umami elixir. The texture? Delicate, gelatinous strands, like silk suspended in broth. The shark fins didn't arrive quietly. Some were smuggled inside rice sacks, a black market delicacy brought in under watchful eyes. To serve it meant you were powerful. It meant you were honoring your guests with the rarest bite on earth. In 1924, $5 bought you a bowl of this liquid gold, more than a week's wages for some. But diners didn't slurp it, they savored it. And when the last spoonful disappeared, all eyes turned to the next dish. A whole fish, still staring back. Steamed whole rock cod with ginger and scallions. The moment a whole steamed fish landed on the table, everything else stopped. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Guests leaned in. Respect, symbolism, good fortune. That's what came plated beside its gleaming eye. The rock cod, caught just off the Pacific, is beloved for its tender, subtly sweet flesh. Cleaned with precision and steamed whole, the success of this dish relied on timing. Overcooked, rubbery. Undercooked, raw and disrespectful. Once steamed to perfection, it was splashed with searing hot peanut oil infused with fragrant ginger and scallion shreds. The sizzling hiss raised neck hairs. Aromas rippled through the room, bringing diners to attention. The fish's whole form carried layered meaning. Nothing broken, nothing wasted. The head was placed before the guest of honor, a quiet gesture loaded with tradition. Less expensive than duck or shark fin, it wasn't about price. It was about presence. And down the alley, something with a ruby-red glaze seduced passerby into restaurants of smoke and song. Barbecued pork. Turn the corner onto Grant Avenue, and you'll catch a scent that stops you short. Smoky, sweet air, thick with char siu. Streaks of pork dangled in windows like edible jewels, bathed in hues of crimson and caramel. But these weren't merely snacks. They were statements. Each chef guarded a secret brine: honey, soy, five-spice, a kiss of rice wine. The pork soaked up flavor for hours before flames coaxed it into melty perfection. The edges? Charred, sugary, and irresistible. Some locals grabbed half-pounds wrapped in thin brown paper, feeding families for just a few dimes. For chefs, those glistening slabs hanging by hooks did more than feed. They advertised, enticed, invited. That radiant meat in the window? It was Chinatown's version of neon, and behind those doors, a delicacy waited. Crab claws cloaked in golden shrimp paste and fried to glimmer like sunlight. Fried crab claws with shrimp paste. There were dishes that stopped conversations, and then there were crab claws like these. Imagine a pristine white claw, meat so fresh it smelled of sea spray, nestled in shrimp paste that's fried to glistening perfection. Crackle on the outside, nearly molten within. This was mastery. The paste wasn't just shrimp. It was pork fat for richness, water chestnuts for snap, and Shaoxing wine for depth. Each claw was wrapped in this blend by hand, deep fried until golden like amber, and served with a dipping sauce of soy and sesame. The taste was uncommonly harmonious, land and sea embracing in a single bite. No forks required. You grasped it by the shell, dipped deliberately, and bit slowly. Because this wasn't about speed, it was about savoring envy. In 1923, 75 cents bought that moment, and across the table, someone was demurely spooning the most improbable delicacy of the night, one made from the hardened saliva of birds. Bird's nest soup with rock sugar? Within the low-lit banquet halls of Chinatown, bird's nest soup was never announced. It simply arrived, steaming and solemn, sparkling from within a porcelain bowl. A dessert fit for emperors, now crossing oceans to grace the tables of San Francisco's elite. This wasn't a misnomer. These nests were spun from swiftlet saliva, gathered from high cliffs in Southeast Asia, a harvest of danger and precision. Smuggling them into the U.S. was delicate work, hidden in crates, passed between merchants in quiet trust. In the kitchen, the nests were soaked until soft, then simmered in rock sugar until their delicate strands turned supple and sweet. Silkiness you could eat. The flavor whispered. But the texture, unlike anything else, slippery, translucent, sacred. In 1921, one bowl cost $8, a treasure priced higher than most families' entire week of food. And when guests finished, the table usually grew warmer, the banquet moving from treasure to comfort, a rice parcel wrapped as if it held secrets. Lotus leaf sticky rice? The server sets a small bundle in front of you, green, fragrant, and neatly tied. You loosen the string. As the lotus leaf slowly unfolds, warm steam escapes, carrying whispers of soy, sesame, and fire-braised meat. This wasn't just food, it was memory, packed into a perfect little parcel. Inside, a mound of sticky rice, each grain distinct yet clinging lovingly to the next. Hidden treasures are tucked throughout, tender pork belly glistening with fat. Coins of sweet Chinese sausage, dried shrimp, shiitake mushrooms steeped in sauces layered with umami. Lo Mai Gai was both street stall favorite and banquet staple, grabbed hot before long shifts by dock workers or served amid feast courses to soothe bellies between extravagances. The lotus leaf kept everything warm and aromatic, like a portable steamer, a natural wrapping paper from home. In the 1920s, 10 cents bought you a hearty meal and a hit of nostalgia. Dining far from Guangdong, it felt like someone back home had packed you lunch with love. And just a little further into the dining room, something cloud-shaped sweetened the air. A bun with a secret inside. If you're enjoying this culinary time travel, hit that like button. It helps more people uncover these forgotten stories. And don't forget to subscribe for more tales straight from the kitchen to history. Feel free to drop a comment too. What's your favorite classic dish? Or one you've always wanted to try? Steamed pork buns. To find comfort in Chinatown, you didn't need a plate. You needed a bun. White as clouds and warm like a hug, char siu bao were the go-to for anyone chasing familiarity. Rip one open and steam escapes like breath on a winter morning, unveiling sticky sweet barbecue pork hidden within. The filling used that same crimson char siu seen dangling in windows out on Grant Avenue. Chopped, sauced, thickened to molasses-like consistency with oyster and soy, and spooned into soft dough rounds. Pinched shut like a dumpling, stacked in rising towers of bamboo steamers, and left to bloom. Break it in half, and the scent alone could hush a conversation. The sauce might drip down your finger. No one cared. That was part of the experience. Workers on the go bought one for 5 cents, filling up fast. Families scrambled to get theirs early. Fresh buns went fast. Across the street, in a slower kitchen, something entirely different was being bathed in soy and sliced with precision. A dish as rich and brown as earth itself. Soy sauce chicken. In a modest kitchen in 1920s Chinatown, a pot simmered quietly, shadowy, fragrant, and alive with decades of meals past. That was the soul of soy sauce chicken, not flash, but depth. A quiet star built on generations of flavor. A whole chicken soaked in master stock. A brew of soy, ginger, star anise, and cinnamon, amplified with every batch never discarded. Some restaurateurs swore their pot had been boiling since the 1800s, each bird deepening the broth little by little. Each bird remembered. Slow poaching gave the skin a dark richness, nearly mahogany. Slice it open, and you'd see the soy had worked its way into the marrow. Every bite tasted like time. For working-class families, this was celebration-worthy. Buy the whole bird and stretch it across meals. For banquet diners, it provided a soulful pause between grandeur. And just as the last bite melted in the mouth, a crackle echoed down the lane. The pig was done roasting. Crispy roast suckling pig. There was no announcement needed. The scent told you everything. Smoky, savory, unforgettable. When a roast suckling pig was pulled from its fire pit in Chinatown's kitchens, crowds followed on instinct alone. Golden skin blistered to delicate crispness, breaking under the lightest touch. The inside? Tender, juicy meat, layered with just enough fat to melt the moment it touched your tongue. Each bite was an echo of wood smoke and five spice. This wasn't Thursday dinner fare. A suckling pig was centerpiece food. For weddings, New Year rites, or grand business launches. The entire process was ritual-like. The rub inside and out of salt, spices, sugar. Slow roasting over coals till skin cracked like porcelain. Fights over the snout or ears weren't rare. It wasn't just crunch, it was culture. To serve the pig whole was to wish wholeness, luck, wealth, prosperity. In 1925, you'd pay what you might for a month's rent. But the pig said something louder than money. It declared joy. And after that rich indulgence, a humble dish brought the feast back to tradition through steam and sizzle. Pan-fried turnip cake. On Lunar New Year mornings in 1920s Chinatown, the sound of something frying filled courtyards and stairwells. Low back go, turnip cake, was being pan-seared to golden perfection, its scent more powerful than any wake-up call. There's no sweet turnip here. This is Chinese white radish, grated fine and combined with rice flour to form a thick, creamy base. Into that went diced Chinese sausage, dried shrimp, mushrooms, all the pantry's most flavorful stock, steamed into sturdy slabs, cooled, sliced, and then pan-fried until each edge took on a deep caramel hue. The contrast hit every bite. Crispy shell, creamy core, dotted with chewy umami surprises. It wasn't just food. Families saw lo bak go as fortune itself. Its name sounded close to rising prosperity in Cantonese. And so it was served to carry luck into the new year, tray after tray cooked days before in preparation. Just a few cents got you a hot slice. And after that hearty tradition, something unexpected might sashay in, shrimp dressed in satin. Walnut shrimp with sweet cream sauce. Some dishes made people stop mid-bite. Walnut shrimp was one of them, part east, part west, and 100% conversation starter. It looked simple, but the first taste exploded like a firework of sweet crunch and velvet. Jumbo shrimp, butterflied and battered light. Fried golden, still tender inside. Candied walnuts added crackling texture, coated in sugar and honey, sweet yet nutty. But the secret applause? The sauce, a whipped blend of sweetened condensed milk, lemon, and mayonnaise that folded around the shrimp like cream on silk. One bite and you got it. Sweet and savory sang in harmony. In the 1920s, it was new. Not traditional, but adored. Mangoes and condensed milk were California blessings. Cantonese cooks found bold new ways to use them. Walnut shrimp offered hosts a trick, a fancy dish without fancy risk. Cheaper than shark fin, yet still impressive. Just down by the piers, though, something more local and more hands-on. was stirring in smoky woks, cloaked in black bean and saltwater magic. Dungeness crab with black bean sauce? By the 1920s, Dungeness crab had already earned its fame along the California coast. But in Chinatown's kitchens, this local treasure was transformed into a masterpiece infused with bold Cantonese flair. Here, it wasn't just steamed, it was unleashed. Once hauled fresh from the bay, the crab was split and cleaned, shell on, because the secret to its flavor wasn't found in separating the meat, but cooking with the shell intact, allowing every crevice to absorb the sauce. And that sauce? A blistering blend of fermented black beans, pungent garlic, sharp ginger, and red chilies scorched in oil just seconds before hitting the wok. The result? A collision of sweetness and funk, salt and fire. Cracking through the legs and claws, diners would suck flavor straight from the shell, fingers stained and faces gleaming with satisfaction. No one left clean. No one wanted to. At the docks, the crab might cost 40 or 50 cents. But inside a Chinatown banquet hall, where waiters moved fast and woks moved faster, it was a delicacy worthy of high esteem and high markup. As the last claw hit the plate, the meal often moved from this untamed heat to a vision of delicate stillness, nestled inside a sculpted melon, softly steaming. Winter melon soup with dried scallops. When this dish appeared during a 1920s Chinatown banquet, the room didn't fall silent out of surprise. It was awe. The vessel was the star, a pale green winter melon carved like jade. Dragons or flowers swirled into its skin, acting as both pot and centerpiece. Inside bubbled a clear, shimmering broth, barely disturbed with every delicate ladle. It was a symphony of subtlety. Dried scallops, jinhua ham, shiitake mushrooms, and tiny shrimp pearls floated gently in the liquid, imparting depth without weight. But the magic came from the melon itself. Its flesh softened and sweated into the soup during steaming, giving it a sweetness that played counterpoint to the scallop's oceany salt. Ladled directly from the gourd into porcelain bowls, it offered not just nourishment, but elegance. Winter melon soup wasn't simply a course, it was a statement that the host had resources, taste, and reverence for tradition. And once the final spoonful was shared, the kitchen would turn up the heat again, leaving subtle elegance behind in favor of the wild, flame-licked drama of sizzling noodles. Beef chow fun, midnight in Chinatown, and the alleys echoed with two sounds, the sharp clatter of metal on carbon steel and the hiss of oil hitting a blazingly hot wok. This was the music of beef chow fun, the street dish of the working class, filling, fragrant, fast. Wide rice noodles, ho fun, were the star. Slippery and soft but never mushy, they danced in dark soy sauce alongside strips of marinated beef, bean sprouts, and scallions. But it wasn't the ingredients that made jaws drop. It was the breath of the wok hay, that smoky, almost burnt edge that couldn't be faked with a home stove. It was alchemy only trained hands in fire-filled kitchens could create. At just 15 cents a plate, chow fun filled bellies long into the night. Vendors slung it on corners, serving steaming parcels wrapped in paper. Restaurant versions came piled high on chipped porcelain, and just as the final bite was gone, something richer, darker, and perfumed like incense stole the air. A duck unlike any other. Tea-smoked duck. Some scents don't just linger, they travel. Down alleyways, around corners, into memory. In 1920s Chinatown, one of those belonged to tea-smoked duck, a dish as slow and sacred as a ceremony. A duck marinated in soy, ginger, and rice wine, then air-dried until the skin grew taut and ready. The smoke came next. Not just any smoke, but a fragrant swirl from a wok lined with black tea leaves, dry rice, and brown sugar. The duck was slowly smoked until the skin turned deep, almost mahogany. The first slice revealed meat kissed by earth and smoke, savory fat perfumed with sweetness. This was preservation turned into poetry. Smoking had once been survival. Here, it was showmanship. Banquet hosts brought it out for honored guests, the kind of dish that said, "You matter." Served alone or with rice, slices curled slightly at the edges. Crisp outside, melting inside. In 1920s prices, it cost more than most birds. But those who knew, knew. for adventurous guests. However, what came next might surprise. Ribbons of translucent jellyfish, dressed with nothing more than sesame and restraint. Jellyfish salad with sesame oil. To the uninitiated, the sight might have raised a brow. Thin, pale ribbons curled delicately on a blue and white plate, almost too elegant to call food. Yet in 1920s Chinatown, jellyfish salad was a sign of sophistication, a quiet show of culinary confidence. Cantonese diners didn't prize it for flavor, though the blend of sesame oil, soy rice vinegar, and sesame seeds was perfectly balanced. But for that stunning texture, a crisp, snap-like gelatin that didn't yield but danced on the teeth. Preparing it took days. The jellyfish was soaked, rinsed, sliced, soaked again. Precision work to make something seemingly simple. It arrived cold, refreshing, often between heavier courses. Think of it as a palate cleanser, or more accurately, a tone shifter. A breath of brightness after rich dishes laden with fat and flame. In the 1920s, this dish was modern, exclusive. An indication that the host had access to products rarely seen beyond China, and as guests marveled at its bounce and chill, the final arc of the meal took shape. Desserts. Bright, humble, flaky, or chewy, a sweet send-off waited just around the next course. Almond cookies. You didn't finish a banquet in 1920s Chinatown. You closed it ceremoniously. And more often than not, that final chord came with a plate of almond cookies and a pot of fragrant tea. No grand gestures, no molten centers or syrups, just a golden, crumbly disc offering quiet closure. These weren't dainty European biscuits. They were rustic, hearty, kissed with lard and flour, molded by hand and crowned with a single toasted almond. That nut, pressed like a wax seal in the center, was both decoration and statement, simple, strong, satisfying. The perfume alone, roasted almonds warmed by just brewed oolong, was enough to relax faces tired from laughter and full bellies. The cookies themselves weren't overly sweet, just enough sugar to evoke comfort. For banquet guests, they were a farewell. For walk-in cafe visitors on a rainy afternoon, they were a cheap temptation, sold for just a few copper coins. Elders liked the balance. Children liked the crumble. Everyone found something soothing in that final crunch. And then, just when the table was clearing, a glimmer of gold. A chilled tropical square that shimmered like morning light. Mango pudding. Mango pudding with evaporated milk. It arrived in silence. A smooth golden square set into a porcelain dish, glistening slightly from a recent chill. Mango pudding in 1920s Chinatown was a surprise, not traditional, not ancient, but instantly beloved. It whispered of sunshine and velvet. Fresh mangoes, often imported from the Philippines, were rare enough to be considered treasure. Pureed until completely smooth, they were folded with sugar, gelatin, and milk, then left to set into a soft custard that quivered with the touch of a spoon. Just before serving, the chef would trail a line of evaporated milk across the top, a simple flourish that turned fruit into dessert. That drizzle added creaminess without dulling the mango's vibrancy, creating something light, floral, and lush in every bite. At just 10 cents, its elegance far outweighed its price. For banquet guests, it closed the meal with a tropical brightness. And for everyday Chinatown diners, it was an edible escape, a brief trip to warmer lands on a spoon. But sometimes, after sweetness had its turn, tradition called again, with a humble red bean stew that soothed from the inside out. Red bean soup dessert. As the clink of chopsticks faded and voices drifted toward sleep, a final course often made its way to the table without ceremony, a simple bowl of red bean soup. There were no surprises here, just comfort. Familiar, warm, and deeply satisfying. Made with adzuki beans simmered low and slow, it thickened into a smooth, velvety texture that filled the mouth gently. Rock sugar added warmth, while dried tangerine peel, used sparingly, sent a lifting note of citrus through each spoonful. It could be served hot, its steam curling up from chipped porcelain after a chilly evening, or in summer it arrived chilled, almost like a sweet bean broth. Either way, it wasn't meant to dazzle, it was meant to finish. This was economy food turned honorific. Beans were cheap, storied, and nourishing. Red beans in particular symbolized joy and good fortune, especially fitting as a final note during weddings. birthdays and new ventures, and just as the last bean disappeared, the mood shifted once more. Laughter returned. Faces brightened, and a plate of golden crackling spheres rolled onto the table. Sesame balls. If your meal ended with sesame balls, it ended with a smile. Known as jindui, these crisp golden globes were pure joy from the first crunch. Rolled in toasted sesame seeds, they gave off a nutty aroma that made eyes widen and hands reach. Crunch through the surface, and you'd meet chewy, slightly stretchy dough made from glutinous rice flour, airy yet dense. In the center, a soft heart of red bean paste or lotus seed paste. Sweet, earthy, grounding. Making them was a performance. Dough balls were coaxed into shape, rolled in seed, then deep fried in hot peanut oil, where they danced and puffed like bubbles surfacing from a pot of magic. Watching them fry was part of the fun. Jandui weren't just sweets, they were cultural bridges. Served during Lunar New Year and temple festivals, but equally at home at the end of Sunday dim sum. In 1920s Chinatown, you could buy one for a penny or two, or enjoy them as the soft finale to an ornate banquet. And if puffed dough didn't win your heart, a different kind of magic cooled just behind the bakery doors. Flaky pastries with silky centers and caramel tops. Egg custard tarts, still warm, nestled in waxed paper or laid neatly on ceramic plates. Dan Tat, the egg custard tart, glowed. Flaky, golden crusts cradled a silky yellow filling that jiggled gently with movement, holding heat like a secret. Though inspired by Portuguese pastéis de nata, Dan Tat by the 1920s had become distinctly Chinese. Refined in Hong Kong tea houses, adopted in San Francisco by Cantonese bakers, eager to blend old worlds with new. The crust shattered delicately, with the bite, buttery and woven from impossibly thin layers. The custard? Smooth, just firm enough to hold shape, soft enough to melt instantly on the tongue. Made from egg, sugar, and milk, its sweetness was subtle, a soft yes rather than a shout. In tea houses, they were among the first to sell out. At a few cents apiece, they offered sublime luxury for common folk. Guests might grab one post-banquet. Others might savor it quietly mid-afternoon, tea in hand, as trolley bells rang just beyond the window. And for those who preferred something, even airier, something steamed and bouncing with sponge-like cheer. Another dessert was waiting, hidden beneath a bamboo lid. Steamed sponge cake. It looked plain at first, just a modest golden square, tucked gently into a steamer basket. But the moment you lifted the soft lid, a rush of caramel warmth met you. Malaigo wasn't showy, it whispered. And those who listened never forgot. This cake was a classic at Chinatown tea houses. Made with brown sugar, flour, evaporated milk, eggs, and a spoonful of lard. The batter rested before steaming, soaking in depth and softness. There was no baking, no browning, just gentle cooking that created a crumb so airy it practically floated off the plate. Each bite was light, springy, and moist without heaviness. It bounced when touched. It gave way with a sigh. The sugars left a whisper of toffee. The lard added just enough richness that families could pass slices even to toothless grandparents and tiny children. In 1920s Chinatown, it was one of the most common and beloved desserts served at dim sum. It filled bellies without fuss. It made children grin. It reminded families of kitchens left behind. And just as your plate seemed impossibly full, the final temptation appeared. Golden wrappers containing hidden bursts of tang and salt. Fried wontons with sweet and sour dip. They were the siren song of the street stall, the snack that crunched like no other. Fried wontons, shaped like tiny pyramids, stacked in shimmering mounds beside pots of tangy sauce. One bite, and they had you. The wrappers, paper-thin, blazed into blisters while frying, creating that sharp, satisfying crunch. Inside, minced pork, chopped shrimp, scallion, and a splash of rice wine for perfume. Each was folded tightly so no filling escaped during its hot oil plunge. But the real magic was in the sauce, sweet and sour, sometimes tinted deep pink, sometimes rich amber. Vinegar and sugar, maybe preserved plum or pineapple. A dipping pool that gave you contrast in every bite, crispy, savory, sweet, sharp. In the 1920s, a paper cone full of these cost just a dime, a miracle of affordability. Street vendors sold them midday and midnight, the scent drifting down Grant Avenue. But these weren't just snacks. They were celebration. Joy in a wrapper, and for those not yet ready to part from the table, one final offering was often left behind. Small, wrinkled, and powerful, Chinatown's quietest, most nostalgic treasure. Preserved plum candy. There was no need to announce it. A small dish would appear, set quietly in the middle of the table. Inside, a handful of preserved plums, each shriveled like velvet stones and dusted in sugar or salt. Unassuming to the eye, explosive on the tongue. These weren't candies in the Western sense. They didn't dissolve into sweet nothing. They gripped your tongue with sour, punched it with sweet, and finished with earthy salt. The plums were dried, cured, sometimes aged for months. Small, dense gems of contradiction. To Chinese immigrants in the 1920s, this was home. This flavor, unplaceable yet unforgettable, connected them to schoolyard stalls in Guangdong or baskets on holiday altars. It cut through the rich meals. It helped digestion after feast-heavy nights. It lasted long after the lights of the banquet dimmed. For many, these were the final note. Not flashy, not fancy, but full of meaning. Carried in pockets, shared between friends, passed from parents to children inside curled palms. And so, a meal might end the same way Chinatown itself survived, quietly, but with bold, unforgettable taste. Chinatown in the 1920s wasn't just a neighborhood. It was resilience wrapped in lotus leaves. It was longing hidden in layers of sponge cake. It was identity roasted, stewed, steamed, and served with dignity, even when dignity was all people had left. Every dish wasn't just food, it was a story, carried across oceans in the muscle memories of cooks, shared across generations at tables that may have wobbled, but held firm. Some dishes dazzled with their shimmer, others whispered their presence with soft aromas. Together they spoke a language deeper than dialect, the flavor of belonging. And the greatest part? 100 years later, if you listen close and follow that old familiar scent down the alleys, you might still find them.